everybody, this is Oksana, and today we're doing something a little bit different than I normally do. This is just kind of a plant forest inspired pendant, and I know I have two here, so it kind of looks like earrings, but it's actually this one that we're going to be making. This is one that I was practicing on before I started the tutorial, so it's just slightly different. But then I thought that it looks cooler like this with like a little vine going across. So if you want to see how to make this, then let's get started. And I just really quickly want to say before we start that thank you so much if you are a subscriber, and if you're not, I hope you will consider subscribing to my channel. And if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button below. That really helps my video get seen. And don't forget to hit the notification bell to be notified of when new videos are posted, which is every weekend. That's when I make new videos. All right, so let's go ahead and make this foresty plant pendant. So first we're going to use some 18 gauge round copper wire for the frame, because 18 gauge is a little more sturdy. So for this particular design, it'll work better than 20 gauge. 20 gauge might be a little too floppy. So mine is about 7 inches. It's just a little bit less, but we'll just round it up and say it's 7 inches. And I prefer for my frame to be like a teardrop shape. So I start by using my ring mandrel, or just anything you have that's rounded. You can do like a makeup brush or just various things around the house if you don't have a ring mandrel, just to get that rounded shape on the bottom of your teardrop. And then that's all you need. Then it kind of makes a teardrop shape, or you can make an entirely round shape if you prefer. You can do that too. So then I'm just gonna kind of mess around with it, try to get it to be the exact kind of size and shape that I want. And once you're good with that, you just grab these little ends here with your pliers and just squish them, and that puts a little angular bend into them, or you can just go one by one and put that bend in manually on each side. So here is our shape. I'm gonna actually hammer it. So don't hammer up here. Don't hammer these wires going straight up. Hammer only this shape. It'll make it extra strong, and it can also add texture, which looks really cool. So to hammer, you need an iron block to hammer on, and you need a chasing hammer. I got the iron block back when I lived in the US, I think from Michael's, because it's pretty heavy, so I think you can find it online, but it might be expensive shipping. And then chasing hammer I got on eBay many years ago. It has the flat side for just hammering it flat, and then the rounded side for giving it texture. So I'm just going to hammer all around to give it a nice, kind of flatten it a little bit, make it stronger, and then I'm going to go back in with this rounded edge, and it'll give it like these little indents, and it'll give it some texture. So I'm just going to do that real quick off camera. All right, so here's that beautiful texture. Hopefully you can see. So hammering a lot of times can bend things out of shape. So you just have to go over it and bend it back into shape. It usually kind of makes it curve, especially when you're doing the texturing. I like to just use my hands to try and reshape it back rather than like pliers or something, because if you squish it too hard it might mess up the texture. All right, so now we're just gonna connect these. So the way I like to do it, that's kind of easiest, is I, with my pliers, just flatten one of the bends just to make it go flat like this, and then I'm just gonna wrap that around like this. I'm gonna come in here and trim it pretty short, but leaving myself a little wire end. Oh, sorry, this little thing moves out of place, and then it makes the cutters like not cut all the way through. There we go. So now I'm just gonna close that little loop up nice and tight so it doesn't move. Here's what we have, and now I'm just gonna make this go straight up again because it got squished out of place. And grab my round nose pliers. So with my round nose pliers, I'm just gonna hold it, gonna bend it towards myself, and then I'm gonna wrap it around a slightly thicker part up here of the round nose pliers because I want this to be my bail and I need it to be large enough so that my necklace fits through. And then you can use either your fingers. Sometimes if this little end is too short, I find it hard to use my fingers and I need to use another set of pliers to just wrap it around. So I did that first wrap and now I'm finding it kind of hard to grab that little tiny wire end. So I'm just kind of pushing it. My goal is to bring it to the back. So this is the front. I don't want to see it from the front. So once I get it here on the back, just gonna trim that. And then we just squish down that little wire end. And the goal here is just to squish it down enough where you can't feel it and it's smooth, so it's not gonna poke anybody. You can see it, but it'll be on the back, so it won't be visible from the front. So now I'm just gonna take a look at my bail here and make sure that it is going straight up and everything is looking good and symmetrical. So now we're done with our frame. All right, so now we're gonna need a slightly thinner wire. So this is 22 gauge round copper wire. Looks like this, 22 gauge, dead soft. You don't wanna necessarily go too thin on this wire because it'll be a little too floppy for this design. So 10 inches is the piece that I cut myself. And what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna fold it in half and I'm gonna slide a little bead, a little colorful bead. So I just found this tiny little faceted bead that I had that's like pink in color. And I'm just sliding it on, and then gotta be really careful with these beads because they'll crack easily. So try not to squish the actual bead with your pliers. But I'm just trying to kind of center it like this. And now we're just gonna have these wires go straight down. So we just have this. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab my frame and I'm gonna put one of these wires on one side and one on the other. I'm gonna have the bead here at the top, like this. And I'm gonna start with one of these. And I'm gonna wrap it around about 3 times. So 1, 2, you can use your pliers to kind of help you get these wraps nice and tight because it can be difficult wrapping such a thick wire. So we've got our 3 wraps and now we're gonna wrap the other end, so it kind of has to wrap around the other way. So let's get started here with my pliers to get that nice tight wrap. There we go. So that's 1 and 2 and 3. I know it looks kind of like a mess, but we'll fix that. So I do want this to be in the middle. I'm just kind of pushing it towards the middle since it moved out of place a little bit. And then also that pushes the little wraps together because they were kind of spaced out. All right, so there we go. It's in the middle. Here's my little wraps. So before I continue with these wires, I'm just gonna turn so this is kind of sticking out this way so we can get to it easily. We will put it back. This part is really tricky if you're using a little glass bead. If you're using a metal bead, it'll be a little easier. But basically what we want to do is we want to twist this. And it can be pretty hard to twist it with a glass bead. So I have some nylon pliers here, but even with something like nylon pliers, you still have to hold it super carefully and gently because you can just crush it and it'll shatter. Ooh, if you hear that sound, like you might be crushing it, go slow and gentle. And I'm almost grabbing just like the edges of the wire, more so than the bead. Trying really hard not to squish or crush this bead. If you find this part difficult, try using a metal bead instead. All right, is that a good enough twist, or should we go a little more? One more. All right. Once you have it nice and twisted, this next part is pretty tricky too, but we want to kind of roll this up. So you can try using your pliers. Again, be really careful not to crush or hit or squish your bead. But I just want it to start to curve. I'm trying to touch only the metal, but I'm trying not to press on it. And I'm just turning my pliers. I also am not squishing this way. Ooh, let me zoom out a little bit. Don't squish, like I'm just very gently holding, because if you squish again that little bead, there we go, we got that first curve. So now we can hold the wire, the curved wire here, more so than the bead. All right, and now I'm just gonna kind of tilt it back this way towards the middle. You can use your hands as well, of course. So this is basically our little flower. I'm trying to push the bead a little bit towards the back here, because that way I'll be able to just kind of close this little loop up a little more. All right, so this is probably good. There we go. Make sure it's still centered. All right, so now we're gonna work on these. So what we're gonna do with them is we're just gonna make them go straight up. Just roughly make it as tall as your little flower here. So I'm just putting a bend in it. Oops. And I'm bringing it back down. And I'm just squishing it a little bit here, like that. And now I'm gonna wrap around. Continue wrapping. Let's do 3 wraps. All right, and then we're just gonna bring this together a little closer. All right, it'll stay put better later after we do a little more, because right now we kind of squish it together and it slides apart. So let's do the next one. So I just want it to be just like the other one, roughly the height of the flower there. Oh, I think this one's a little taller than the other one, so I'm just gonna try to make it a little shorter and then squish it. Like that. Okay, so now I'm on the back here, and I'm just gonna wrap this around 3 times. So let's see. I switched it back to the front here so I can see how many wraps are forming. So we just need one more. Or is that good? No, that's 3. Yeah, so I think we have 3 here. So let's see if we can squish it all together now, and if it'll stay. All right, that's kind of staying put. So let me grab my round nose pliers, and what I'm gonna do with these little bits that we made is I'm just gonna put a curve in them using my round nose pliers. And now we're just gonna curve this other one, trying to make them the same amount curved. This one, I think, just needs to be kind of squished down a little bit. There we go. So now it's starting to look more like a flower. So we just have to finish off these little wires here. So if you want, you can just wrap them and finish them up, or you can just do another little kind of grass type thing, but this time I would make it just really short if you're gonna do it, because there's not a lot of space and it's just gonna bump into the other ones that we just did. So if you're gonna do it, make it really short, and then let's just wrap around as much as we can here to secure this. So this is gonna be 3 wraps, and let's just do 4. And to finish off our wire, I like to put it here on the back and then just a little bit taller so it almost goes on like the inside edge. So here's like the little wire end, you can see it sticking up. So when I push down on it and I kind of try to squish it, it's gonna end up here on the inside edge, so it's kind of hidden. Let me try to press all of this together nicely. Here's that little tiny bit that we made. I'm just gonna curve it a little bit. There we go. So now we're just gonna do the same thing here on the other side. So I have to make a tiny little bit of grass here. Whoop. Try to make it the same as the other side, and now we're just gonna wrap around 4 times like we did on the other side. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So I'm just going to trim it so that when I push on that little wire end, it's going to end up on the inside edge here. And you just want to push that little wire end really well, just kind of squish it. I like to almost just kind of turn my pliers to just smooth it out because you don't want it to be pokey. And now I'm just going to try to get to this little bit of grass that I tried to do and put a little curve in it. So it just kind of looks more natural, more like grass. So now here's our little flower. and it should stay put pretty well now. Now if you touch it, you can see why I use this wire, because even with the 22 gauge wire, you can still move it a little bit. So, but at least it's kind of more sturdy this way. So this is the bottom of our little forest pendant. So now we got to do something up here to fill in this space. So I'm just grabbing another piece of that 22 gauge wire, a little bit shorter this time, about 6 inches, and I'm just going to work on this side here. So the first thing I'm going to do is just wrap it around a few times just to get it started. So I'm just holding this little end here. I'll cut it off later, but just to get it kind of started and get it attached. There we go, that should be good. About 4 wraps there. So now I'm gonna make these little like plant things. You can call them leaves, I guess. They look a little bit like leaves. So what I'm gonna do is use my round nose pliers to make a rounded shape. So it's rounded at the top here. And now I'm just gonna hold it so it doesn't move, and I'm gonna wrap this wire around again 3 times, should be good. So 1, 2, 3. All right. And now I'm just gonna do that again, but try to make it a different size. So I'm gonna make this one a little bigger, since this little space is increasing. So now I'm just going to push on it to flatten it down, and I'm going to wrap around 3 times. So 1, 2, 3. And now this time I'm just gonna put a little bend in it, and I'm gonna put a little metal bead. So I have just a little copper bead here. Now, even though it's metal, these little seamed copper beads that I have, it's just a 2mm seamed copper bead. They still kind of squish pretty easily. So I'm gonna hold it with my pliers in a minute here to make a twist, you'll see, but we will have to be really careful with it. So before I do any of that, I'm just going to finish off this little wire end. So at this point, it's so short that I just have to use my pliers to wrap it around and finish it up here. All right, and now I'm just going to push on this, make it go up a little bit. If you don't have the wire or the space for this last little bit, that's totally fine. You can just not do it. So again, you just have to be kind of gentle with this. I'm going to try and raise it up a little bit so I can get to it more easily. Maybe I don't even have to hold the bead. Maybe I can just hold below the bead. But basically I just want to twist, kind of like we did with the flower, except I'm not gonna wrap it around. I'm just gonna leave it because it's gonna be just a small little tiny thing here. All right, that looks good. So now we can just place it back. It's just like a random little, like a little berry or something. That's what it can be. So here's what that looks like. So for these leaves, what I want to do is just hold them nice and flat. You don't want to get rid of that roundness, but just give them a little twist like this. And if it messes up the shape at all, you can just use your pliers to fix it. So I'm just going over the shape, kind of flattening it a little bit. There we go. You don't have to do it, but I just think it looks nicer with the little twist. So I'm just gonna get in here now, and kind of, if you hold it towards the bottom, that usually works best. And do the little twist. And now I'm just gonna fix the shape. Oops, fix the little shape of my leaf. All right, now you can kind of push them into place. There we go. So now the side is looking good, and there's just some empty space here for us to fill in, and also this little wire end I almost forgot about. Let's get rid of that. So this is one of those designs that you just kind of play it by ear and you add stuff to it kind of how you like it. If you like the little flower or these little grasses, you can do more of those on the side. You can do more of the little leaves like I just did. This can be made however you want. So what I'm gonna do is cut myself another piece. So here's another piece of the 22 gauge wire. I just did 6 inches again, that way it's easy. So I just wanna attach it here on this side. Where's our front? Yeah, this is the front because it's got the texture. So whatever is easiest for you. There's not a lot of space here for me to get into there and attach with my hands, so I'm just gonna get it started with my pliers instead. So we've got 3. I'm just gonna do a few more so it is really well attached. Might as well just use up the whole wire at this point since there's not that much left of it. All right, is that end good? Gonna really squish that end down so that you can't feel it. There we go. I'm thinking, let's raise this up a little bit. All right, so I'm thinking it might be cool if I have it going across like this with some green seed beads, so it looks kind of like a vine. So I have these little green seed beads. Most little beads will fit. This is a pretty thin wire, the 22 gauge, so it should be fairly easy to work with. So I'm just gonna keep putting them on until I have enough to go all the way across how I want it. So here's what it's looking like, and you know what I thought would be fun is if this had a little colorful bead, like a little flower growing on the vine, like that. What do we think? Does that look good? Maybe if I switched it so that there is a seed bead after it. Like that. I think that looks good. So, just gonna hold it and attach by wrapping this wire around. You can go either in this direction or in the other direction where I'm going. Make sure it's a nice tight wrap. Nothing is moved out of place, and this wire was actually too long, so didn't need to do the full 6 inches. You can do a little less. I would just wrap this around a bunch of times to make sure it doesn't move up or down. Once you've wrapped enough and then you see that it's really staying put nicely, then you can go ahead and trim that off. So maybe like 5 wraps or so. And now we're just gonna squish that little end like we've been doing. And we're done. Here is our little foresty plant pendant, and it could easily be earrings. The only thing is with earrings, it's kind of hard to make it match perfectly, but if you can manage that, it could be cute earrings. You can make 2 earrings and a third one of these to be a pendant, to have a whole set. And I just want to show you real quick another one that I made. So for this one, it ended up being a little bit bigger, and the flower is a little bit taller and bigger, and it just has these 2 leaves without the little tiny leaves there, and then the little vine I did differently, just so you have some more kind of ideas there. So that's it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.